The house that never lets go. There are some stories that linger in the back of your mind long after you hear them. Stories that make you question if you're ever truly alone, even in your own home. Tonight, I bring you one terrifying true story that will chill you to the bone. Are you brave enough to listen until the end? Some places are meant to be left alone, but curiosity has a way of drawing people into places they should never go. This story is about a man named Daniel, who learned this lesson the hard way. Daniel was a historian, fascinated by old forgotten places. When he heard about the abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town, he couldn't resist the urge to explore it. The house had been empty for decades, yet the townspeople refused to go near it. They whispered stories of people who entered and never returned. Daniel dismissed it as superstition. After all, he had explored dozens of abandoned sites before. What made this one any different? One cold autumn afternoon, Daniel arrived at the house. Its towering structure loomed against the gray sky, its windows like dark, empty eyes watching him. The door creaked as he pushed it open, revealing a grand but decaying interior. Dust coated the furniture, cobwebs hung like curtains, and the air smelled of mold and something faintly metallic. He stepped inside, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The deeper he ventured, the more he felt uneasy. It wasn't just the silence, it was the feeling of being watched. He shook it off and continued exploring, taking photos and notes. In one of the rooms, he found something strange, a mirror, completely untouched by dust. It stood in the center of the room, its surface oddly inviting. As he looked into it, a shadow flickered behind him. He spun around, but there was nothing there. Just empty air. Ignoring the chill that ran down his spine, he moved on. In the hallway, he discovered a set of stairs leading downward. The entrance to the basement. The locals had specifically warned him against going down there. But Daniel, ever the skeptic, was determined to see for himself. He descended step by step, the air growing heavier with each passing second. The basement was unlike the rest of the house. It was clean, organized, and eerily preserved. And then he saw them. Journals. Dozens of them, stacked neatly on a wooden table. He picked one up and flipped through the pages. The writing was desperate, scrawled in uneven strokes. It told the story of a man, trapped inside the house, unable to leave. He spoke of voices whispering in the night, of shadows that moved when no one was looking, and on the final page, a chilling message. Once you enter, you belong to the house. Daniel's breath caught as he heard the sound behind him. He rushed up the stairs, but the door at the top was no longer there, just a solid wall. Panic surged through him as he banged against it, his screams swallowed by the silence of the house. The air around him grew thick, pressing against his chest. And then, the whispers began. He turned, and his flashlight flickered. The basement was no longer empty. Figures stood in the shadows, watching him. Their faces were blank, their eyes hollow voids. Daniel tried to run, but the room stretched endlessly, the walls shifting and warping. The last thing he saw before everything went black was his own reflection in the untouched mirror, smiling back at him. Days passed, weeks, months. Daniel never returned home. The townspeople whispered of his fate, but no one dared to enter the mansion to look for him. And then, one day, the house was abandoned no more. A man stood at its window, watching. If you ever find yourself near that old mansion, look closely. You might see him, staring out, silently pleading for help he will never receive. Conclusion. Some places are meant to be left alone. Some doors should never be opened. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And sometimes, when you step into the unknown, you never step out again. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more terrifying tales, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because you never know when another chilling story will find its way to you. Until next time, sleep tight.